Hello, welcome back to Letters of Paul to the Philippines. What if I told you that the early church learned its faith the same way Kung Fu masters passed down their art? Not from textbooks, not from universities, but from master to disciple, hand to hand, life to life. In Kung Fu movies, someone always asks, "Teach me your Kung Fu." And the master answers, "First, learn how to live." Today we're stepping out of the mist of history to uncover one of the Church's oldest training manuals, a document older than most New Testament books were widely circulated. It's called Didache, and this is how the Church learned its Kung Fu. Picture this: Istanbul, 1873. A monk rummages through a monastery library, not looking for treasure, just something holy to read. Then he opens a dusty old book, copied in 1053 by a scribe named Leo. Inside, ancient Christian documents, letters by Clement, writings linked to Barnabas, and then something strange. A text no one had seen for nearly 1,000 years. When it was finally published, scholars realized this wasn't just another ancient book. It was called The Teaching of the Lord according to the 12 Apostles. In Greek, Didache, which simply means teaching, not theory, not philosophy, but training. In Kung Fu or Karate movies, lineage matters. Mr. Miyagi learned from his father. Daniel learned from Mr. Miyagi. Then Daniel teaches his students, and later, Cobra Kai shows us how traditions can be corrupted or redeemed. The Didache is exactly that kind of lineage document. An anonymous Christian editor, probably in Alexandria, Egypt, around the early 2nd century, gathered teachings that were already old in his time. What he preserved were two ancient training manuals: the Two Ways, the earliest Christian catechism, and number two, the first church order, how Christians worshipped. Think of it like this: the Gospels tell us what Jesus said. The Didache shows us how the apostles lived it. This is Christianity before buildings, before seminaries, before centuries of commentary. Raw, practical, lived. Every martial art begins with discipline. You don't start with flying kicks. You start with how to stand, how to breathe, how not to misuse your strength. The Didache begins the same way, with the two ways, the way of life and the way of death. Using the 10 Commandments as a foundation, it gets brutally specific. Not just do not kill, but do not murder, do not abort a child, do not kill a newborn infant. Not just do not commit adultery, but no sex outside marriage, no exploitation, no abuse of boys, no treating bodies as objects. In a Greco-Roman world obsessed with pleasure, power, and spectacle, gladiator games, infanticide, sexual exploitation, Christians were called to a radically different lifestyle. This wasn't just belief. This was counter-cultural Kung Fu. Strength restrained by love, power disciplined by mercy, and generosity was not optional. Quote, "Do not hesitate to give. Share everything with your brother. If you share what is eternal, how much more what is temporary?" Close quote. This was a church training people to live like new creations. Now comes the worship manual, the real dojo stuff. There were no church buildings. Christians were persecuted. So how do you baptize? The Didache says use running water. If not, use still water. If not cold, use warm. If nothing else, pour water on the head. That's not compromise. That's pastoral wisdom. The essence mattered: water and the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Before baptism, everyone fasts, not just the candidate, but the community. This is where Lent and Advent begins, not as calendar seasons, but as training periods, like a kung fu disciple fasting, meditating, preparing, not to earn power, but to receive transformation. The Didache also shows us how Christians separated from the synagogue. Jews fasted Mondays and Thursdays. Christians fasted Wednesdays and Fridays. Why? To mark Christ's betrayal and his passion. Jews prayed the Shema. Christians prayed the Our Father 3 times a day, calling God Father. That's not just prayer, that's identity. Only disciples of Jesus pray like that. Every Kung Fu tradition has a core practice. For Christians, it was the Eucharist. Every Sunday, not Saturday, they gathered to confess sins, reconcile with each other, break bread, and offer sacrifice. Yes, sacrifice. The Didache connects this directly to the prophet Malachi, the pure offering among the nations. No reconciliation, no communion. Because unity wasn't optional, and only the baptized could receive. Quote, "Do not give what is sacred to dogs." And then comes this stunning prayer. As the bread was scattered over the hills and made one, so gather your church from the ends of the earth. The Eucharist didn't just unite people to Christ, it forged the church into one body. Who wrote the Didache? We don't know. And that's the point. Like Mr. Miyagi, the teacher disappears so the teaching remains. The compiler didn't want credit. He wanted fidelity. He wasn't inventing Christianity. He was passing it on. Apostle to disciple, generation to generation, from Palestine to Alexandria to Constantinople to the Philippines. And now to you. Because the question remains, who taught you your Kung Fu? And who will you pass it on to?